What's going on, YouTube? It's Byron Talks. Subscribe to the channel for more great content. We're going to get into this video. Aid at the Table is discussing some really good things, talking about being more realistic, or should we be more realistic when it comes to the black men, and a lot of different things that they dived into on this video. Let's go ahead and get started with it.
Things like she wasn't choosing to be there because she was happy. She was choosing to be there out of necessity, or maybe because she was scared, or maybe because her kids needed things. You know, so I think a lot of us don't understand the historical difference between just 2 generations ago, our grandmothers and our grandfathers. And a lot of people in our generation, our parents weren't together. Daddy wasn't around, or parents were divorced, or, you know, so at this point, we shouldn't be relying on traditional roles.
No, we should throw them away, which is why there's no more speak some, keep some. Women make more money than men, so now they get to say, get the fuck off my face. They get to talk and say what they really want to say, because me and mom couldn't do it. Yeah. You know what I mean? So she had to sit back. That's why I tell women, they say, oh, I want the traditional, whatever. Okay, well, let's talk about tradition then. Back in the day, a man could have another family 5 miles down the road. And nobody would ever know until they died. And the funeral, this your cousin, no, this is your sister. You know, you found that out.
It was peaceful. A lot more peaceful.
What was peaceful?
Back then.
My grandma stabbed my grandpa, so I don't know. I don't know how peaceful it was.
So I also want to touch on it, and you know, you brought up something that made me think of it on the flip end too. And I'm not gonna dive into conspiracy theories. That's not what I'm gonna do. But we gotta be realistic. We gotta be realistic too, what we're talking about when we try to say that there's not enough men that are willing or ready to be married, or are marriage qualifying or materials, right? And the funny thing is that men, specifically black men, have been ran and kicked out of their homes since the 70s. So now you had children that were born in the 70s, 80s, 90s. There's been a domino effect, who did not have a man role model in that household.
When were the men kicked out?
Well, basically, there was basically a bribe. So, you know, you basically had women at the time who had children, and government assistance was there to say, okay, well, if you want government assistance in these, you know, low-income areas, the man cannot live and reside inside this house.
Okay, wait, but let's
So he just went into a really good place there. He went deep there. This is why it's very important that you do your research when you start having these conversations, because it's a lot that has happened down through the years when it comes to the black families. A lot of people don't know about these things, but it's a lot that has happened with these black families down through the years, which have caused a lot of the issues that we're now having. Let's continue. Listen to what they say here.
No, he's right. No, but he's right. Before that happened, though, men, what we need to see, our black men pretty much are laborers. We're blue collar at best, right? So there was a time where a man could work in a factory and take care of his home and be middle class. When they shipped the jobs overseas, the men had nowhere to work. And then, okay, so now our women had to go and they had to assume this masculine role. And what some men don't understand, it's hard for a woman to be in her feminine energy when she's worried about bills.
It's hard for a woman to be in her feminine energy when she's worrying about bills. Oh, man, that's tough. But that is true. It is difficult. If a woman is worrying about so many other things, she's worrying about how the car gonna get paid, and worrying about going to work, working 8, 10 hours a day, because some women work long hours. When they have to worry about all these other things, it does take away from their feminine energy. That is so true. Let's continue.
So now they're assuming the breadwinner role. They had to. And now we have a show on television that shows us they drop crack in our neighborhoods. And now a man worrying about bills, he's stressed out, he's gonna turn to either sex or drugs. So he's gonna hit that pipe. So now the man that was a strong man is an addict now. And the woman is still trying to pick up the pieces. And when you are stressed out, you turn to sex. That's why poor people have so many children. Sex is the cheapest form of entertainment.
Yeah, but what I was really going with, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but what I was going with was more so something totally different. So what ends up happening is you have a lot of kids that grow up without a father figure. I watched this video that was from the 90s, and they had interviewed 5 African-American women. I hate that terminology, African-American, but 5 African-American women, and they were asking about the father, like, okay, do you need the father's help? And I said, no, I don't need the help. I don't need his help. I got this, I can do this, I'm gonna figure out how to do it, whatever. Granted, I don't know the variables that, existed in the relationship, but what I'm saying is you have that situation that occurs, right? Now you have that child, which is the product of the situation, woman or man, right? But because we're talking about men, I'm gonna just speak about men. That child who's a boy grows up to be a man. He never had a dad there, or he never had a man figure there to cater to that woman. What is he emulating?
Right.
He's emulating his mom.
He's emulating his mom or his environment, either or, right? And then he has a kid, right? And then when he has a kid, now we're talking about early 2000s, his dad is still lost in the sauce somewhere, and now this kid is now looking at him being lost in the sauce, and who is that boy emulating?
But quick question, at what point do you just take personal accountability and be like, you know what?
Yeah.
My dad did this, fuck all of that. I'm not doing that.
That's me.
But that's what I'm saying. So I understand the context you're giving it, but we all have personal choices. Like my younger brother, his dad wasn't around, but he's making a conscious decision. I am going to be in my kid's life. I'm going to raise a family with their mother. We are going to be married. We have the nuclear family because this is what I want for myself. And I think that a lot of times a lot of content makers make the argument that you're making and say that, well, that's why. It's not why. No. But they rely on that, saying that's the reason. Yeah. Is that reason plus lack of an accountability?
Well,
that's what it is.
I agree with her. A lot of content makers do make that point, and they are correct in making that point. But I do agree that she's saying we need to be accountable as men, and that is true. Nobody can get around accountability, men or women. That's true.
Well, we're talking about core. Well, I'm talking about core. You're talking about solutions. I'm talking about the core problem. That's where we're different.
No, the problem is lack of accountability.
The problem isn't the lack of accountability when it's new. Now, when we can sit back here and say 3 generations later, you've lacked accountability and you've lacked accountability, I'm not going to be that person to make it. But when it's a fresh cut, it's hard to solve. So now we have, like, for example, I didn't have my father there my whole life, right? But I don't emulate him at all. I take care of my whole family. I love doing that. That's something that brings me joy, not happiness, joy. But it took for me to see my grandfather do it to my dad and my dad to do it to me. And if I was the first generation of it, I could possibly say that I would be lost too. It's a possibility. But what I'm saying is, at the core, you have a lot of men that just don't have a role model.
No, I get it.
And I'm not saying that's an excuse for bad behavior. Right. But it's
a contributing factor.
But it's a pivotal factor, because it's hard to sit here and tell a person how to deal with their traumas. It's very hard. And I've learned that because you cannot have a dad, I cannot have a dad, I could be a great dad, you could be just like yours.
But why?
But he's still accountable.
But tell us why.
Why what?
Why, if you both come from the same circumstances and you choose to do something else, would it? Because the thing is that the variables, this is constant. Yeah. So what variables make you do something different?
The people I surround myself with.
So you're saying like.
But the thing is, they have both come from the same situations, and he's doing something different, the other doing another thing. It still comes down to accountability from the guy that decides to do the right thing, that decides to come out of those bad circumstances that they were raised in. It still take accountability at the end of the day. I mean, come on.
Your friends and stuff?
Exactly. See, the difference is a lot of men who grow up lost surround themselves with other lost men. And I said this on another episode, but I was speaking about women because we were speaking about women. A lot of people, now that we're talking about men, so women and men surround themselves with poor people, and I'm not talking about financially, I'm talking about mentally, spiritually, and principle-wise.
They're called echo chambers.
Exactly, exactly. So now what happens is you become a product of what you surround yourself with. So for me, what made the difference for me is I had great people, which I'm blessed for, that told me, because I was gonna go down that route. Like, I'll tell you straight up, I was like, yo, no, like the way this happened, blah, 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 blah. But I had people in my ear that tell me, like, that's not the right thing to do. That's not how it should be. And even though I fought with them, they fought with me. And then, you know, by the time my baby was here, I mean, everything was already hashed out and we figured it out, you know? But if I didn't have them and I had the same others that were saying, yeah, fuck that. It's part of my rights. Yeah, forget that. Keep doing what you're doing. You don't need her. You go make another one. This is real. You know what I probably would have did, especially because of how I was feeling? I would have just probably followed those footsteps. So I think to answer your question is the main difference between going left and going right is simply whoever that person is surrounded by to tell them better because they didn't know better.
So pretty much who's ever pouring into you.
Yeah.
Yeah, whoever's pouring into you. And you know, I think I'm also like, it's so funny because I never thought in my life I would say this. Almost all of my friends are married. Right? And I didn't realize this until recently. And I'm like, yo, this is my close friend and he's married. And there's another close friend of mine and he's married. This is another close friend of mine, he's not married, but they've been together for 7 years. That's married. Like, you know what I'm saying? This is my other close friend and
being together 7 years is not married. I agree with the sentiment of what he's making. The point is, the people that he's around have long-lasting relationships. I agree with that, but 7 years still isn't married. It still isn't. And that's another issue that we have in our black community is we're not getting married. We're just being together. We're just being together. And it's crazy because I understand that you can be committed to someone when you're not married, but it's still important to make a commitment. You know, it's still important to make a commitment. We can't just. But it's a lot to that one too, because I know some people say, well, it's because with the way things are today and the divorce rate and all these other issues, I understand why people are not married, but you still that this might be what the problem is. We're not even getting married. We're just talking and just going in circles and nothing really is happening. But until both parties have a conversation and an honest conversation and be accountable for their actions, we'll continue the cycle of most of the black women not married, single mothers, the black community just arguing with one another online. So it's just so many things that we could talk about, but we're going to go ahead and end this video. Subscribe to the channel for more great content. Thanks for watching. It's Byron Talks. We out.